Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom.
In our top story, the American people have spoken and have re-elected Donald J. Trump as the 47th president of the United States. Israeli leaders celebrated the news, expressing their hope for a strong America that will stand with Israel. This comes as the Jewish state faces increasing threats from Iran and its proxy armies on 7 fronts. President Trump has made it clear that he will support Israel in defending itself and has called to destroy Iran's rogue nuclear weapons program, which poses a grave threat to Israel and the West. Israeli officials congratulated the president-elect and expressed their eagerness to work with the new American administration.
The Pentagon has recalled the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier from the Middle East. The United States dispatched a carrier strike force group to the region after the October 7th Hamas massacre as a show of support for the Jewish state. Now, as Israel is facing even graver threats, the Abraham Lincoln and its fleet of warships and destroyers that replaced the USS Roosevelt in the region have been ordered to return to their home port of San Diego, California. The departure of the American aircraft carrier and its strike force will leave the Middle East vulnerable amid heightened tensions as Iran and its proxy armies mercilessly attack the Jewish state. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has ordered B-52 bombers, tanker aircraft, and Navy destroyers to the Middle East to help fill the void left by the departure of the U.S. aircraft carrier.
Lebanese Christians and Druze are standing up to Hezbollah, refusing to allow the terror group to take over their towns. According to the New York Times, volunteers from the city of Hasbiyah are patrolling the town's borders around the clock to prevent the Iranian-backed terrorists from taking over their homes. Other towns have negotiated directly with the terror group to ensure that they will not fire rockets from within their villages. Ghassan Halibi, the deputy mayor of Hasbiyah, said, "We don't want anyone related to Hezbollah here. It took us years to build this town, and it could all be destroyed within minutes." Druze and Christians say that Hezbollah imposed this war on them and that they want no part in it. They just want peace.
Senior Saudi officials traveled to Washington, D.C. recently to negotiate a security agreement that does not include Riyadh's recognition of Israel. The oil-rich Gulf state was on the verge of joining the historic Abraham Accords before the October 7th Hamas massacre. Intelligence experts believe the genocidal attack was intended to prevent Saudi Arabia from making a peace deal with Israel. Washington offered Riyadh a generous security package as an incentive to sign the accords. But after a year of failed negotiations, the Biden administration caved in and dropped Israel from the deal. American officials appear to be moving forward with a security agreement that does not require Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel.
Jerusalem has released the details of a daring mission into Syria to capture an Iranian agent who is passing sensitive intelligence to Tehran. After closely monitoring the activities of the suspicious individual who repeatedly surveyed the Israeli border, members of the elite Agaz Commando Unit infiltrated Syrian territory and captured Ali Suleiman al-Assi. The Iranian agent admitted to gathering intelligence on Israeli military activity near the border. The IDF noted that his arrest has prevented and disrupted future attacks and led to the exposure of the modus operandi of Iranian entities on the Golan Heights front. In related news, the IDF launched a series of airstrikes on Hezbollah's intelligence unit in Syria. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights confirmed that senior members of Hezbollah were killed in a targeted strike on a house used by the terror group and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Israel's foreign ministry has officially announced the termination of its agreement with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. The Knesset passed a series of laws banning the corrupt Palestinian aid organization from operating in Israel and cut all communication between Israeli leaders and UNRWA officials. Outgoing Foreign Minister Israel Katz explained that UNRWA employees participated in the October 7th massacre, and many of its staffers are Hamas operatives. Katz said UNRWA is part of the problem in the Gaza Strip and not the solution. He dispelled the false narrative that there is no alternative to UNRWA, saying that only 13% of the aid to Gaza currently goes through the UN agency.
New Israeli intelligence reveals that only half of the remaining Hamas hostages are still alive. On October 7, 2023, Iranian-backed Hamas terrorists infiltrated the Jewish state and slaughtered 1,200 people and took 253 others hostage. In November of last year, Hamas released 105 civilians, but since then, the terror group has rejected all offers to secure the freedom of the remaining hostages. Hamas operatives had been directed to kill their captives at the first sign of an Israeli rescue attempt. 6 Israelis were executed by Hamas in Gaza in August when their captors saw IDF troops closing in on their location. This new intelligence reveals that 34 hostages were murdered in Hamas captivity and that only 51 are still presumed alive. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly offered millions of dollars and safe passage out of Gaza to anyone who returns living hostages.
The United Kingdom's Conservative Party has elected Kemi Badenoch as its new leader. Badenoch is the daughter of Nigerian immigrants to England. She will replace former British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak as the leader of the opposition. She is a supporter of the Jewish state and has repeatedly spoken out in defense of Israel. When Badenoch served as Trade Secretary, she rebuffed numerous attempts to revoke weapons licenses to Israel. She stressed that Israel is showing moral clarity in dealing with its enemies, who are the enemies of the West as well. Badenoch has expressed her opposition to the Labour Party's stance on Israel, saying that it is turning the United Kingdom against our free, democratic ally and makes Israel and the Jewish people around the world less safe.
A delegation of leaders of indigenous people gathered at the Western Wall in Jerusalem to pray and show their support for the Jewish state. The group marched from the Jaffa Gate through the Old City of Jerusalem to the Wailing Wall, cloaked in Israeli flags and their native attire. This collective of indigenous peoples from around the world formally opened the Indigenous Embassy in Jerusalem in February, declaring that the Jewish people are indigenous to the land of Israel. Sherry Trotter, the co-director of the IEJ, said, "There is a false narrative that has taken hold of the Western world that paints Jews as foreign colonizers who dispossessed the indigenous Palestinians. We want to change that narrative."
Hundreds of Israelis gathered in the ancient biblical city of Shiloh to pray for America ahead of the U.S. presidential elections. The group publicly recited the Psalms and collectively prayed for the well-being of the United States. Israel Gantz, the governor of the Benjamin Regional Council, organized the event. He said, "We choose to pray to God from the side of the tabernacle used by the nation of Israel when they entered the Holy Land and brought blessings to the peoples of the region." He added that he hopes a blessing will come forth at this time and from this spot to the United States, Israel, and the entire world. Shiloh was home to the Holy Tabernacle for 369 years. This incredible site has now become home to a new exhibit that is bringing visitors from around the world. Rebecca has more on that.
Yes, Yochanan, the biblical city of ancient Shiloh has become home to 5 red heifers. The book of Numbers, chapter 19, commands the Israelites to bring a parah adumah, or red cow without blemish, that has never worn a yoke, and sacrifice it outside the tent of meeting. Its ashes were then collected and saved to create the water of purification for the Israelite community. These perfect red heifers disappeared over 2,000 years ago, but a group of farmers from Texas have bred 5 prospects and brought them to the Promised Land. Unfortunately, 2 of the animals have already been disqualified, but the remaining 3 are strong candidates to fulfill this important biblical commandment. Jews believe that temple sacrifices cannot be reinstated without a parah adumah, and the reemergence of these biblical cows after 2,000 years is being hailed as a sign of the times. We at Israel Now News would like to invite all of our viewers to visit ancient Shiloh, to see the first home of the Ark of the Covenant, and visit the biblical red heifers.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Naomi Kahn. She's the Director of International Affairs for Regavim. Naomi, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little about what is Regavim?
Regavim is a nonprofit. It's more of a movement. It was founded 18 years ago. 3 co-founders who saw the same problem from different angles. And the problem is the failure of the government of Israel to protect our national resources, literally from the ground up. They began to understand that land use policy is the key to a nation's sovereignty. The most basic resource a country has is its land, and the decisions about who uses that land and for what purposes are the most basic expression of a nation's sovereignty. So they came together to create this organization to monitor Israel's land use policy and recommend corrections where necessary.
You've done a lot of studies and you've warned a lot about the Bedouin population in the Negev, that they're building illegally, that they're squatting on land, that there's a huge criminal activity. Can you tell us a little about that?
The state of Israel has, for decades, since the 1960s, attempted to reach a compromise solution with the Israeli Bedouin population that claims ownership of massive land holdings in the Negev with no legal basis. So rather than enforce the law, the state of Israel has attempted to reach a negotiated resolution, constantly improving the package that it offers the Bedouin in order to compromise and remove their claims and come to terms with Israel's sovereignty and land ownership in the Negev. All of those attempts have failed and have actually spawned a massive industry of criminality, of fraud, and of massive theft of Israel's national resources.
This is not just a criminal issue. This community is actually getting more and more radicalized. In fact, a lot of the terror attacks that we see in the South are from Bedouins who become Islamic extremists. Can you tell us about that?
We believe, and we've always believed, that the key to all of it is normalized, regulated, legal living conditions in which the state of Israel has an address and a phone number for people who live there and can therefore hold them accountable for criminal activity, enforcement of the laws that exist equally on the Bedouin population as it does for every other population in the state of Israel. The fact that there are 80,000 people, citizens of Israel, living off the grid in the Negev on state land illegally means that the state of Israel has no way of reaching them, no way of incorporating them into society, no way of regulating who's there, what they're doing. And unfortunately, we see this entire community has been radicalized because Israel has failed to involve itself in the educational processes there, in the religious services that are offered to that community, and other things that it is involved in every other community in Israel. And that has spawned a radicalization that is extremely unfortunate, and we're all paying the price now.
Well, I think the question is why? Why has Israel allowed this problem to fester? Is it because of international pressure? Is it because it's just far away in the Negev? Is it because they were busy with other things? Where's this coming from?
I think it's part of a syndrome. The government of Israel, since the founding of the state, and certainly it's something that we saw in 1967, the government of Israel lives under the fantasy that they can convince everyone to love us, to get along. And Israel is more afraid of being accused of racism and cultural appropriation than anything else. At a certain point, when you've exhausted all avenues for negotiated compromise and for coexistence, people who don't want to live according to the law of the land have 2 choices, either to go to prison or to go somewhere where they can live under the law that they choose. But in the state of Israel, there's one law for everyone, and it needs to be enforced.
On to Judea and Samaria, where Regavim is claiming also that there's a major problem with allowing illegal building by the PA. Can you tell us about that?
The illegal construction in Judea and Samaria and Area C, which is the only area under Israeli jurisdiction and the only area in which Regavim is active, the illegal construction there is of a different nature altogether. This is strategic, planned construction to create a de facto Palestinian state without negotiation, without compromise, in direct contravention of international law and the Oslo framework, which the Palestinian Authority signed. There's massive international pressure that is supporting this illegal activity by the Palestinian Authority. And here, the State of Israel has, in fact, refrained from enforcing its jurisdiction and upholding international law because of international pressure.
We're seeing something that is not just a land grab, but maybe a huge security issue. A lot of people are saying that the next October 7th could happen in Judea and Samaria. Do you see that?
Absolutely. We've been warning about it for years. In the later part of October this year, we issued a full-scale report tracking illegal construction in what was left as a buffer zone to allow Israel reaction time if the Palestinian Authority launched an attack onto inner Israel. In that buffer zone, currently, there are nearly 19,000 illegal Palestinian Authority structures. We know very well what happened along the 30-kilometer border with the Gaza Strip, that seemingly innocent civilian activity of agriculture and construction was used to prepare and to launch a massive terrorism attack. The border along that buffer zone with Judea and Samaria is 10 times bigger and 10 times more dangerous.
Naomi, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
My message is educate yourselves to understand what's really going on, to understand what it is you're reading and not reading in the media. Look at our website, read our reports. Everything we do is fact-based. It's facts and law, not narratives and fake news. So look at Regavim's website and reach out, follow our updates, and be informed.
Thank you, Naomi, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
Hundreds of people are dead and thousands are suffering in jail in Iran today, and it's all part of the Iranian people's brave fight for women's rights.
They're protesting the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in Iran.
In September of 2022, 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died in a hospital after being detained by Iran's morality police.
The UN says Amini was with her brother in the capital when she was arrested last week for what was considered to be an improper hijab or head covering. There are reports she was beaten on the head with a baton. Amini fell into a coma shortly after being arrested and died 3 days later.
Medical scans leaked to the press reveal that she suffered a cerebral hemorrhage due to head injuries she received following her arrest.
The incident sparked unprecedented protest across Iran, with 20,000 people arrested and more than 500 killed.
Iranian society flooded the streets, raging against the morality police and getting furious over the unjust killing of Amini. People around the globe who remember a more liberal Iran lament the days when women were free and more integrated members of society. Since the Iranian Revolution, Iranians have been living under Sharia law, the code for daily living in the Muslim world. It tells Muslims how to pray, fast, donate to charity, and live every aspect of their lives. One of these aspects includes how women should dress. Iranian protesters say it should be a woman's personal choice to wear a head covering or not. During the regime of Iran's former Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, women in Iran began to enter society in a bigger way. The Tehran University opened in the nation's capital in 1936 and accepted both men and women. This was a big win for female education. And by 1963, women acquired the right to vote and even run for parliament. At that time, 6 women were democratically elected to the government. The country went through what was called the White Revolution, which was a 6-point reform program by the Shah. One of the reforms radically improved the lives of women by allowing them to request a divorce and gain custody of their children. Before this, men could divorce their wives without reason and automatically gain custody of the children. The marriageable age for women was raised from 13 to 18 years old, and men needed the court's permission to take a second wife. Under these reforms, literacy rates doubled. Iran even had a Women's Liberation Day, which was celebrated annually and was part of the Women's Awakening Project, which was instituted by the Shah's father. In 1978, there were 22 women in parliament and 333 women elected to local councils. A third of all university students were female, and 2 million were in the workforce. That all changed when the monarchy was overthrown in 1979 during the Iranian Revolution. When the takeover was complete, the new Islamic Republic removed women from their roles in government. Women after the first grade were forced to wear the hijab. The family laws that offered women divorce and child custody were erased. Men could divorce a wife with a simple declaration. Polygamy became unregulated for men, and the marriageable age for women was dropped down to 9 years old. Today, as women fight for their rights, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has become increasingly more strict. You can frequently see clips online of women arguing with officers who are trying to arrest them for the way they dress or exposing their hair. The officers often bring female representatives who try to shame the women into adjusting their headscarves. Many of those who resist are imprisoned. People from around the world have been utilizing social media to show global support, including Israelis.
International solidarity with these brave Iranian women is crucial, and I have already joined their call. Woman, life, freedom, zan zondagi azadi.
One social change group in Israel even created a mural showing the faces of women who suffered in order to stand their ground. In December of 2022, the United States introduced a resolution to remove Iran's male representative from the Commission on the Status of Women within the United Nations. The measure easily passed. It is incumbent upon all of us to support the human rights of women and girls in Iran and around the world. Up next, the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
I'm standing in front of a sign for the Shikmim neighborhood here in Kibbutz Be'eri. We've seen that the building has already begun, and it's very exciting. I had the privilege of being a part of the groundbreaking ceremony for this neighborhood, and 2 adjacent neighborhoods are going to be built next to it that will be to house those who lost their homes on October 7th.
Since 1980, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been a voice of Christian support for Israel and connected the global church to the land of the Bible. Headquartered in Jerusalem, the ICEJ has taken action to stand with Israel by caring for Holocaust survivors, helping Jewish families return home to Israel, providing bomb shelters, fighting anti-Semitism around the world, and by inviting Christians to discover Israel for themselves.
Very early in the morning, the terrorists made a huge hole, a 40-meter hole in the fence with a big tractor, okay? And as you can see, my house and my neighbor house is the same house. It's the closest one to the hole in the gate, in the fence. So I show you later, all the people, most of the people around here didn't survive. And we had a miracle in that morning. We survived. Right now I'm living in a small hotel in Tel Aviv. Coming every day here to Be'eri to work and to show the people around. And we have no belonging at all. We have only this, some clothes. We don't have anything with us. And we are moving to Hatzerim, to the neighborhood that built for us in Hatzerim in the end of October. and waiting for building the houses, new houses, and we will be back in Be'eri. We are coming home, and we renovate the kibbutz, and we'll be okay.
I'm here with our good friend Ido Schwartz, and we're standing in the center of the kibbutz in a place that's been cleared. We're discussing today, Ido, about the rebuilding process of Kibbutz Be'eri and the communities in the south. Tell us a little bit how it's going.
So we are now in the heart of Kibbutz Be'eri, where the educational campus was standing. Behind us is one of the kindergartens. All this place was leveled because of the heavy fighting that was here and the situation of the different buildings. Here we're going to build the educational centers, the after-school activity take place, and the educational offices where the teacher lounge and things like this. Regarding the building, Kibbutz Be'eri has already started the first rebuilding phase of 52 house units, and I hope that by the end of 2024, the entire community will be at Kibbutz Chatzerim. We need your support, both firstly by prayers, that those efforts will be fruitful, and secondly, come and visit us and bear witness to this miracle of rebuilding this shattered community. We don't only ask for your partnership, we need your partnership.
We're excited at the International Christian Embassy to be a part of this process of renewal and rebuilding, not just in Kibbutz Be'eri, but also in other communities around the south of Israel. And we want to say to our friends around the world, join with us to be a part of building a brighter future for the people of Israel.
After Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, the ICEJ has been actively standing with Israel and her people through advocacy and urgently needed aid projects. Now is the time for Christians to turn their love for Israel and the Jewish people into real action as never before. Your donation will help deliver bomb shelters to at-risk areas, provide necessary supplies for first responders, support affected citizens with trauma care, and will eventually help rebuild these devastated communities. Visit ICEJUSA.tv to donate online or call 1-800-910-6355 and give your generous gift today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El-Rom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.